Good morning, everyone, and welcome to part two of our NEC Com Summit. If you are excited to be here today and to learn more about AI, can I see some action in the chat? Can I see? Okay, I see you, Dimples. Um, Jerry, thank you. I know that you are alive and well and you're ready. You're ready to learn something new today. We're so happy to have you on Zoom and also on YouTube, on our conference YouTube channel. We're so happy to have you with us. Today, our guest presenter again will assist us in thriving through the digital transformation of this world without surrendering to what makes us human. If you were at the last workshop, we gained a lot of knowledge, and today I'm so excited to see what else I can learn on this whole idea of artificial intelligence. You know, it is very important for us to remain human. Our presenter said that to us last week when we are using AI, because AI is all around us. It's in our emails, it's in our online interactions, everywhere we go. Um, if you know what to look for, you will know that AI is present. So the aim of this two-part series is to give Christians the tools needed to enhance their everyday lives, but ultimately helping us to minister to others in amazing ways using AI. Our presenter, Pastor André Campbell, who is extremely knowledgeable in this area. We introduced him last week, but this week we will introduce him again for those of you who are joining us for the first time. And Lucy is going to introduce him. She is a AI generated avatar. So you will meet Lucy in a couple minutes. Today's session will be approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes. We realize that we do need a little more time than the hour slot that we suggested. In fact, you guys asked for a bit more time to get into the practical application of the AI prompts and everything that the presenter is going to um, have us participating in today. So we're going to begin the meeting now with prayer, and this will be done by the communications director from the Mount Sinai Seventh-day Adventist Church, Miss Andrea D. Hicks.
May we all bow our heads for prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for allowing us to come to this Com Summit, Lord, so that we can learn about AI and that we can use it intentionally, and that we will be able to learn more so that we can utilize these tools to bring people into God. Thank you, Lord, for all that you do for us. Help us all so that we may be able to continue to learn and to be able to pass on the information that we receive. Thank you, Lord, for all that you do. Be with Northeastern Conference, be with Pastor André Campbell, and all of those who are working behind the scenes so that we can get the tools needed so that we can grow. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Mhm.
Pastor André Campbell is a pastor, strategist, entrepreneur, and doctoral researcher whose work focuses on human dignity in the digital transformation. He serves as pastor of All Nations Seventh-day Adventist Church in St. Petersburg, Florida, and as chief strategy officer for NAOE Research and Development, Inc., a medical device company focused on innovation in healthcare. André is currently completing his executive doctor of business administration at Pepperdine University, where his research explores how artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, and connected digital systems are reshaping human behavior, communication, leadership, and lived experience. Drawing from nearly 3 decades of ministry, global travel, business leadership, and technology engagement, André helps individuals and organizations navigate the digital transformation with wisdom, discernment, stewardship, and authentic human presence. His work emphasizes the importance of remaining human in the loop as society adapts to increasingly intelligent and connected systems. Please welcome again Pastor André Campbell as he presents on AI adoption and usage.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another session at the Northeastern Conference AI Summit. And I hope I didn't come in too soon, Lavern. And I hope we can kind of uh,
You're good.
we're good. All right. I want to see if we can really have more of a conversation today. Of course, I will present and I'll ask you to place your comments and questions in the chat. And Laverne and her assistant and myself will monitor the chat. And if I see a question that is going germane with where we are on the topic, we'll stop and spend some time with that. So I want to go ahead and set up all of my stuff, all of the deck, and also send you the document. So give me one moment here to add that in here. And let's see here. Gonna add it like I did last time in the chat. And let me see here. It's always my favorite part. Uh, as much as I know about tech, it always catches me out there every once in a while. So let's see here. I'm in the chat and I want to add a file. Okay. Let me see if from my computer, there we go. And let's see. Let's put our workbook in there. And there we go. Capability without captivity. So we continue on the learning about digital transformation, the AI vending machine. But today, in particular, as we learn the tools, as we learn about the tools, how to maneuver with the tools, we want to make sure that in our minds, we are focused on capability without captivity. So you can go ahead and download that workbook. Matter of fact, I'm going to open it up myself over here on the side, so I could look at that as well at the same time with you. And let's see here. There we go. And now I'm going to open our PowerPoint and see if I can get that up. Uh, I've had it working last week, so we're gonna go again. Let's see. All right, can everybody see? I don't know if I'm sharing, so let me double check, make sure I am sharing.
Not yet.
All right, here we go. I think I have, let me see if I have the slideshow. There we go. All right. All right. Can everybody see that? It's taking up the whole screen this time instead of having my slides
Good.
on the side?
Uh-huh.
All right, awesome. I'm going to move our stuff to the top. And so today, digital transformation. I want to thank my dear sister for the prayer. We've known each other, Sister Hicks and I have known each other for years, and so thank you for that prayer. And thank you again, Sister Lavern, for having me here once again. I realized we were calling this part two, but I literally wrote it down as part 1.5 because the more I tweaked this week and I received the questions, thank you all for the questions and the comments. I realized there's still a lot more to this. So I'd be happy to come back in the future. Let me see if I can open up the chat as well so I can keep my eye on that. But I would be glad to come back in the future and take it even further because it's constantly evolving. Capabilities have grown tremendously since 2023, when most of us became aware of large language models, artificial intelligence, or AGI, artificial general intelligence, and we started in the midst of all of our busy lives and the platforms we were already using, we went through this transition. And so I look forward to that. So Laverne will share that file again. Thank you, Laverne. And so we've already prayed. Let's get right into it and take our time, because when we get to the tools, and I promise you today, I'll answer your questions that were already sent. We'll try to answer some additional questions in the chat, and we will get to the tools, but let's continue to build. Last week, this week, let me just go with our title again: Digital Transformation and the AI Vending Machine, Capability Without Captivity. That's what I want you to remember today. Capability without captivity. Maybe some enthusiastic person can type that in the chat so it can persist, but capability without captivity. Let's go to the next slide. Let me see if I can get on there. So where we left off, let's pick up where we left off last week. Uh, we talked about AI and mentioned it is a tool, and reminding ourselves that we are human. Let's not forget that, because we can anthropomorphize, which is we make human, we give it human attributes. We can anthropomorphize AI, and we often do that. And then there's the other side of it. Some folks may have come to this summit with a little skepticism. Is AI of the devil? Let's be clear. The Bible does tell us that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers, of darkness, and people in high places, magistrates. So we recognize that this creation, which has been ongoing, artificial intelligence ongoing since 1956 at Dartmouth College, which I may have mentioned last week, has been developing for decades. This is not something new. We are not starting the digital transformation. We are well within it. We're going to touch on that again in just a moment. So we want to remember that the vending machine teaches passivity, and we refuse passivity. I want us to wrestle with that today, that we refuse passivity. Number three, where we left off, we must remain the human in the loop. Now, human in the loop mostly comes from the aviation sector, where they talk about the autopilot phenomenon. And that's when you turn on autopilot, things are going to change, and the pilot loses a sense of where things are when he returns from autopilot. And that's where a lot of accidents, a lot of crashes, and a lot of near incidents take place, because when the human is out of the loop, they are out of touch with what is actually taking place. So we must remain the human in the loop. We can't allow the algorithm, and I'll go a little deeper a little later in this. But I'll say it frankly and plainly now. We cannot allow the AI algorithm to replace the divine intelligence and divine algorithm and begin to lead us where we're following the algorithm, right? Must remain the human in the loop, allowing God to share his divine intelligence and algorithm with us. And if you don't know what that algorithm is, last week some folks mentioned Daniel and Joseph and others who heard from God and were able to discern the dreams of the kings and the pharaoh. So then, last but not least, where we left off, we talked about being a driver of dignity and not and having discernment and not just a passenger. My father taught me again how to drive 5-speed standard shift manual shift vehicles, and he said to me, son, uh, only people that drive standard shift. I don't want anybody get offended today, so pull back your corns and your bunions. But he would say only people that drive standard shift or manual shift vehicles are true drivers. Everybody else are operators, right? Because you literally are not involved in the actual mechanisms besides steering and putting in drive and pressing the brake, etc. And so we don't want to just be passengers or just operators. We want to be drivers of this thing called dignity and discernment. And dignity is a topic that I hope we'll expand on in a little bit. And so today we want to go from awareness, and I have that right at the bottom, so highlight that. Today we want to go from awareness. Last week we spent quite a bit of time on awareness, and this week we want to go to stewardship. All right, from passengers to maestro of one's own attention. I'll explain that whole maestro bit in just a little bit. So let's talk about the productive struggle. I promised you last week I would touch on the productive struggle, and that is the work of becoming wise is not the work of getting easier answers, right? We talked about that AI vending machine and how easy it is. You pull up to it, you drop a sentence in, and boom, it spits out what you desire. But we're going beyond. We're going beyond that. Let me move some things around here. As a matter of fact, I got a lot of things on the screen here, so I'm going to move our chat over to another screen. So just give me one moment with that, and let me see if I can. Okay, you can still see the PowerPoint. Okay, let me see if I can move this one over as well. I just want to keep my little script so I can stay on time here. Let's see here. Okay, so um, continuing on back, so the productive struggle. Before we name a single tool today, I want to just spend another moment on this. The work of becoming wise, as we have right here, is not the work of getting easier answers. My father used to say a word to the wise is sufficient, right? And so he said, and I mentioned last week, if you love it, let it kill you. You can decide to use AI like a vending machine, or you can decide to apply wisdom. We mentioned that old quip last week. Some of you may remember the idiom that says, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it in fruit salad. So today we're going to learn what to put in the fruit salad, all right? And we're going to identify a lot of other things. AI gives us speed, brothers and sisters, and it decides what's worth doing fast. And the productive struggle, the wrestling with the text, the wrestling with the email first, the wrestling with the text message first, it changes the output of these large language models that we are dealing with. Matter of fact, in healthcare and in leadership, they are saying that it is better to ideate as a group before turning to the large language models, because what'll happen is that it'll diminish the output if the group turns immediately to the large language model instead of using their own wisdom. So we want to decide today. I hope that you will commit first and foremost as we get going to the productive struggle. Let me see if I can get back over here. All right, to the productive struggle. All right, and so somebody put that in the chat for me, the productive struggle. So let's go. I love these, Lavern. I love to create these on AI. Now, what I want to emphasize is that in the creation of these images, one of the things we'll point out today is that you have to verify. You can't just slap it together and assume because it's an intelligent large language model is going to get it together. So when I put things like this together, I go through in detail and I double check because it saved me a ton of time. It used to take me a long time, hours to create a slide like this, but I'm able to now, if I'm able to prompt it correctly, I can do this. And we'll get to some of that. I'll actually give you some prompts you can copy and utilize. And so but we're looking at something called the Great Compression. Now, the big idea, everybody, every generation compresses the work of the previous one. All right. Every time you generate something, it's compressing that work. And I'm going to give you some words to use in a bit that I want you to keep in your vocabulary because AI is kind of like us. Once we read something, we start to rely off of memory. Right? We read the Bible and we keep relying off of memory off of what we read in the Bible. And sometimes we end up, memories are fragmented and we end up mixing scriptures. We end up mixing stories. I think it goes like this. And so, compression, let me say that again. Compression, every generation that we create compresses the work of the previous generation. Let's look at music, for instance, right? Eight track. Anybody remember eight tracks? Anybody old enough to have an eight track in your car? My uncle had an eight track, and big old thing like a VHS, and you stick it in the dashboard and then it gets stuck and all kind of foolishness. Then it was the cassette players. I used to make cassettes for my wife, when she was my girlfriend, and I would send her a cassette player, right? And she had to put it in and that could fall apart. And then they came out with the CD and the CD-ROM and so it kept on going. And anybody remember the MP3s, right? The iPod and I think they had an iPod Mini and all these things, and now we're on our cell phones and we're streaming. So what I'm trying to get across to us is that we've been using the progression of artificial intelligence and technology for decades, right? The tools change, but the value of those tools don't change. We still need wisdom, discernment, and human in the loop. All right. So let's go to money. How about money? Checkbooks. Anybody used to write? I hated checkbooks personally because then I had to correct, reconcile the checkbook at the end of the day, and I kept everything in my head. So when debit cards came out, I was good, right? But some of us remember checkbooks. That was a technology, right? And then debit cards, right? And then debit cards within the last 10 years, they started chipping debit cards. Not every business was up to date. I think Home Depot took forever to be able to tap, right? Which is the next stage. And now we have the digital wallet. So we have been moving into the digital transformation for quite some time. Humanity has, as we have on the script slide here, humanity has always used tools to compress effort. So let's keep going. So AI, this is the key term here at the very top, right here in the light color, right above the cassette. It says AI compresses cognition. All right, let's look at the phone real quick. Communication got compressed, rotary phone, car phone, cell phone, smartphone, and now have you seen the smart glasses? Right? I'm careful now when I roll up on people and they have those big Ray-Bans on. I look to see the little cameras in the corners because now every conversation is recorded, every interaction is recorded and captured, right? What about knowledge? Now, this I saved knowledge for the last one because again, a lot of us see AI, large language models, and we're like, oh, the devil, right? Well, did you call encyclopedias the devil? I know we have a lot of Seventh-day Adventists on here, and this is a Seventh-day Adventist conference. So let me talk about one of our prolific writers, right? And might get in a little trouble for this, but Ellen White, in her day, right? She had the printing press. You think she thought up all that stuff? Yes, she was inspired by God, but she also gathered all the books of her day, and she extracted knowledge out of those books. And today we call it plagiarism. But back then it wasn't plagiarism because there were no laws for it. That was the chat GPT of those days. That was the large language model of her day. And so encyclopedias, medical books, commentaries. And then you go at the library. The library was the data lake, right? And wealthy individuals, because of their embarrassment of wealth, built libraries all over the United States to allow people to have the opportunity to go into an environment where they had immense knowledge and they could gather it. But it took a lot of time. And so, as we'll see in a moment, the magic or the miracle, maybe I'll use the miracle of compression, right? So we went from the library to Google. You type in Google, but you still had to scroll through all of this content, pages, and sometimes tens of thousands of pages of content and decide which one you were going to use. And now, because artificial intelligence and large language models have developed, right? You literally log on and it says, "How can I help you today?" I mean, very helpful. It's a digital butler for sure. So let's move on. But we want to remember, let's look at the bottom. We want to remember to remain inspired by divine intelligence and grounded over to the right side at the bottom here, grounded in human intelligence. Let me just check the chat, make sure I didn't miss anything. Somebody said we had an 8-track in our Cadillac. Come on now, my Lord. Amen. Well, let's go on and move on here to our next slide. And so now what we're faced with, and I figured I'd use some images and some wording, but some images will make the impression here that AI is compression. It is the power to do more and the responsibility to do it wisely. I was telling you I had a basically kind of an argument with a friend as I was sharing some things regarding AI, and he's anti-AI. He said it's of the devil, and I said, yes, we're warned in the Bible that that Lucifer is at the helm of a lot of the things that man is seeking to do. So we won't deny that, but let's remember the tool is not the devil; it is the use of the tool, right? It is how we choose to use the tool. It is literally a metal box in a data farm or a data center somewhere rural where I told you it requires a lot of water to keep its components cool and to operate. And it's an Arduino board. If you know what an Arduino board, it's a circuit board where you connect circuits together. And so it's a machine. And so it's not the devil, but it can be utilized as a tool, just like music can be utilized. But God created music, but man and the enemy can use it for evil. And so AI is the power to do more. It compresses time. Let's look over here to the right side or the left, either one. It compresses time from hours of effort to instant results. And I tell you, the feeling of being able to get something instant is a very I think you get a release of dopamine because of how instant it is. But then we can't be foolish. I think that's why we're having this today, because you could have brought anybody to explain AI, but we need to understand the responsibility that comes along with it, the spiritual responsibility that comes along with it, right? And so it compresses research, so from scattered searching on Google to synthesized insights, right? But we must verify, compare, and go deeper, right? It compresses writing from blank page to polished draft. And once it learns your writing style, right? Your style, tone, and voice, it will begin to sound more and more like you and become your digital representation. We want to be careful of that as well. It also compresses translation from language barriers to global understanding. I have a device called the Plod Note, and I usually use it looks about the size of a credit card. I turn it on, I sync it with the app, and I can record conversations, just like on Zoom now. I hope this is being recorded, right? It is being recorded. And so Plaud, Plaud Note costs about 150 or so dollars. I pay a little monthly fee and I'm able to capture transcripts, but not just transcripts, but mind maps and summaries and notes and just all sorts of things that it's capable of doing. Now I know I could probably just use an app on my phone or an app on the computer, but I prefer that because it's mobile. It can run around with me. So it can translate into over 150 languages, something crazy like that. And so really the limitations are being removed, the barriers are being removed, and so. But with technology, even though technology connects, I want to make sure I read that little part there. Wisdom contextualizes. And that's what we as humans need to make sure we do. So I'm moving as quickly as possible because I want to get into the meat and to the part that you want to get to, which are the tools themselves and how to prompt and utilize them. And so analysis from data overwhelm to meaningful patterns, right? Data analysis where you can now see the patterns and can help you identify those patterns, which again would take a regular human some time to recognize and to go through. It can also help us with planning. So less time, more clarity, greater impact. Over here on the left side, AI takes what once took hours, days, or weeks and compresses it into seconds. I want you to get a physical understanding of this. So China has 300 and China has over 1 billion people, right? As a matter of fact, India just overtook China a few years ago, maybe a year or two ago. It just overtook them with the number of people. But China is having a, like Japan, China is having an attrition issue where the elderly population are dying. They didn't have as many children, so therefore the population is shrinking, and they're expecting it to shrink down in the next 40 years to around 600 million from over a billion. So that's a big number, right? But to give you a sense of compression, and China has more people in college and university than the United States has, period. So, in other words, they have over 360 million people in college and university. And so they can accomplish with that many people studying, they can cover ground that we could not cover. And so AI actually becomes a great equalizer because we are able to, once, if we become prompt engineers of sorts and responsible AI users, we can actually accelerate and compress the things that we need to do into seconds. So AI compresses the process and wisdom determines the purpose. I keep on giving you these little quips because I want to, right alongside of what AI is capable of. I don't want you to drink the Kool-Aid so much that you drink the cyanide lace Kool-Aid, the purple Kool-Aid, and end up going down the wrong path. And so let's go on to the next one. And I'm looking just to make sure there aren't any questions in the chat. Feel free to put a thought in the chat. I know I'm going 100 miles an hour, but we're going to slow it down in just a moment. I want to get some of these out of the way. So there's no shame, brothers and sisters, in using compression. We've used it in every generation. I'm trying to shake our minds. If you're here today, maybe you are pro AI, but I'm not here to be pro AI or anti AI. I'm here to be pro wisdom. I'm here to be pro divine intelligence so that we can know how to use the tools. And so cars compress distance, refrigeration compresses spoilage, printing press compressed transmission of knowledge and information. And the question isn't whether to use AI's compression. The question is what gets lost when we do. And what we can do is we can mitigate for that loss. So let's go to our next slide, another slide on compression. Compression does not equal comprehension. I know you like the fancy pictures, but I got to give you some plain Janes every once in a while, right? Just because a thing can be summarized or compressed does not mean it has been understood. And that's what we're starting to see with the brain rot. And last week we talked about the digital dementia, the device related dementia, because we're not using our minds. And then we end up becoming dependent on these artificial intelligent models, and our own mind begins to atrophy. Let's not forget, I studied psychology in undergrad. I studied neuropsych in the summers at Howard University, HBCU, under Dr. Alfonso Campbell. And one of the things that we were studying was how the pathways in the brain can atrophy when we're not utilizing them. It's good on one hand, it can help you break a bad habit that has a superhighway in your brain. But when you're allowing these tools to do the thinking for you and you don't join in, it can lead to brain rot. So compression speeds the surface, replaces the labor of thought, but comprehension, it requires the depth that we have and demands a labor of thought. That goes back to the that goes back to uh, the productive struggle. So now let's move now to this slide, and it is the outsourced mind. So let's take a moment and look at this, and maybe put in the chat, what do you think when you go through this slide? Read it for a moment. I'm going to give you a moment, and someone asked, do we have last Sunday's session? Is it available? It is available, and maybe we can put a link to that in the chat for you. But it is, if not available already, it will be available. So look at this this slide here, and let's look at that. All right, the outsourced mind. Before we ask what AI will outsource, let's be honest about what we've already handed off. We've handed off our memory. Let's talk about that for a moment. I want to ask a question. How many of you, I don't think I asked it last week, so I'm going to take a chance and ask it this week. Put in the chat how many phone numbers that you can remember without looking in your phone, how many phone numbers you currently can remember? I know about four. And I have to repeat them a few times to get to make sure that they're. But all right, Sister Ann, hey, Sister Hugie. Sister Hugie said she can remember about three, and Jerry from Corona said five. Andrea Hicks said four. Everybody's being honest. Okay, if I see somebody say 10, I'm gonna have to call you out because I'm gonna have to call you out, and you're gonna have to say them all without looking at your phone. Two, Pat, and so we realize that what we have done is we have outsourced our memory, right? Look, go clockwise up here at 11 o'clock here. We've outsourced our memory to our cell phones. And so we already see the diminished capacity that takes place when we outsource our minds. And so that is what's happening. And we need to mitigate that, right? We outsource navigation. How many of you know how to, I turn on navigation when I go to my church, and I go to my church several times a week. I go to that community several times a week, but I still turn on navigation because I've outsourced directions to my GPS, right? And here we are now outsourcing our texts and our calls and our emails, our messages, and our scheduling, right? Our calendars are soon. Some of us, I don't know if anybody here has hired a AI agent yet. Hmm. I don't know if anybody's hired an AI agent because it's a lot cheaper than hiring a real person, truthfully, right? And yes, folks say they're worried about losing their jobs, but there are new jobs coming, right? You don't want to be an AI agent, right? But AI agents can schedule your life better than you ever could, but you still, again, need to remain in the process. Entertainment, knowledge, etc. So I'm not going to take a lot of time here. Tools should expand our capability, not replace our humanity, right? And so uh, Google replaced the libraries. Now the large language models are replacing Google. The outsourcing is taking place. I'm not even talking about Neuralink, where they're putting chips in people's brains. They're already testing it out. They started testing it out on paraplegic individuals, and the first individuals after animal testing have already gotten their neural links, and they're working, right? And so the outsourced mind is going to get very close and personal. Let's go on to the next slide. There's three books that I mentioned. I mentioned them last week, and so I want to actually bring the covers of the books forward today. And somebody said we are fearfully. Dr. Jordan said we are fearfully and wonderfully made. The brain has so much capacity. You are so right. We are literally only using 10% of our brains. And if we are right-handed, we typically are operating out of our left hemisphere. And if we're left-handed, we're operating out of our right hemisphere. So, and I'm left-handed, so they tell me that only left-handed people are in their right mind. I'm going to leave that right there and keep on going. And so, three books. There's three books. And so that we can understand the system and discern our place in the system and shape the future. And before I mention these books, I want you to, I didn't pull that slide in because I didn't want to spend a bunch of time on it, but I want to give it an honorable mention. When I talk about understanding the system and discerning your place and shaping the future, we have to understand a concept called the Hegelian dialectic. Let me put that in the chat for somebody. Maybe somebody can find a link on that. It's so easy to look it up, but Hegel is the man's name, and Hegelian dialectic. And basically, what it is, dialectic, basically, what that is a pyramid, right? And at the base of the pyramid, just a flat uh, two-dimensional pyramid, right? And at the base of the pyramid, you have the thesis and the antithesis. So you might have black and white. You might have Christian and Muslim. You might have tall and short. Whatever the difference is, and the disagreement is, the powers that be keep us arguing thesis against antithesis at the base of the pyramid, while they are determining and look at my camera, Lord have mercy. While they are determining, it zoomed in on me, while they're determining the synthesis at the top of the pyramid. In other words, those that are in power and set up these systems, they are actually determining where the system is going. So we need to understand the system, discern our place in it, and drive our own synthesis. The jail, the prison that we're placed in at the bottom of the pyramid, it's not real. In other words, we don't have to remain polarized. We don't have to remain at odds with each other. We can recognize that we are being polarized against one another and begin to pay attention to shaping our own futures with the help of the Holy Spirit guiding us. Amen. I'm about to start preaching, but I had to pull back. I was about to start talking about Jesus when the disciples came and said, "How do you know what to do?" And Jesus says in John chapter 5, verse 31 or so, he says, "I don't do anything on my own." He says, "I listen and then I decide because only the Father is the true judge." So we can be guided by the Lord. And so the first book is the digital transformation, right? Matter of fact, over here to the right, this book, this cover, see, this is where I messed up. This cover doesn't belong here. This is supposed to be which book is that supposed to be? The other two book are correct, but this one is wrong. So I got caught out there. Uh, hmm. But let me name these other two here. This one is the Church of Facebook. Now, any pastors on here, any leaders, you really want to see this. And we experienced some of this during COVID. You had some members who swore they would never be on Zoom, but as soon as they couldn't go in that church, they put on their half top and they sat down. And some of them stood up for prayer and got embarrassed. Y'all remember some of the things that happened during COVID. But the Church of Facebook shows us how individuals have accepted this virtual connection, right? And that identity can be shaped, belonging and mission can be shaped. And so we're facing this hyper-connected world and it's redefining community. Then there's digital transformation. If you really want to understand what's happening to our world, it starts out in the beginning talking about evolution and mass extinction. So you got to filter through that. But when you get to the other side, you start to understand how our world, everything in our world is being digitally transformed. So let's go on. Let me move on from this slide because these are just three voices in this conversation. And I wanted to bring them forward. The other book was supposed to be Surveillance Capitalism. That was the other book by Shoshana Zuboff. Let me see if I can put her information in the chat. And that way you can look up the book. And I'll put a little information in there. Let me do that right now. There we go. And so let me give an honorable mention for that. So Shoshana Zuboff, I've read this book, very powerful book. If you do it on audio, it takes about 20 hours, but I'm on my second read of it. The big point here is the thesis is that tech companies built an economy that converts human experience into raw material. You are not just the user, and this is key. You are not just the user, you are also the product, and your data is that product. And so let's keep going here. That data is being extracted, is predicting behaviors, and it's concentrating power at the extractive level of these data firms, these companies that create this artificial intelligence. Let's keep moving. Some of you will recognize this slide. And so we're back to capability without captivity. And so now we're about to get into the tools. Get your notebooks out and the recording will capture this. But I want to say clearly today, let's use the tool. Don't let the tool use you. How about that? Don't be a tool. Compression is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, yes, I got beat with a paddle in elementary school. I mentioned it last week for using a calculator because my father bought a calculator and I took it to school and he was using it in my math class. I was always an early adopter. But I like I needed to understand back then. I needed to understand arithmetic, and mathematics and arithmetic. So I wasn't just an operator of a calculator, but I would actually be a driver who could do both. But I could outsource it if I choose. So compression is fine, captivity is not. Let me let that marinate for a moment as we move into the tools, because I'm going to give you tools. Now, you can take those tools, and my wife jokes all the time. She's like, Andre, I love the vending machine because she's using it for emails and text messages. She's not writing dissertations and other things and writing sermons or communication tools or whatever it may be, or grand plans. She's sending text messages. I'm fine with the vending machine, but be careful, brothers and sisters. The vending machine offers instant outputs with minimal efforts, but the warning is the offer itself. let's go on. Let's move on to the next slide. And Lavern, would you want me to provide these slides so people that may want to take them and just go through them slowly can do the same?
Yes, you can do
All
that
right.
as well.
All right.
Thank
No
you.
worries. So let's go to practical AI stewardship and where how are we doing on time? I'm not even looking at a clock at this moment. 11:44. So I was flying on through. Wow, 45 minutes gone already. So let's look at practical AI stewardship. All right, and somebody, let me look over here on the chat before I transition. Let me look at the chat for a moment. Um, I see when you have the chance, elaborate more on the differences between capability and captivity. I'm glad you said it. Let me read a little bit of what I have in my notes here. And this is really the thesis of the entire summit, right? Capability, not captivity. So, in other words, artificial intelligence. Dr. Ron Lee from Stanford Health, he writes on, driving better outcomes in healthcare. And in that, he talks about AI is a capability. It extends what you are able to do. So imagine nowadays, many of you go into your doctor's office and you might notice that your doctor or your PA or your NP is now actually looking you in the eye and paying attention to what you're saying if the health system that you are under is using ambient intelligence. So they don't have to take notes anymore. For a while, they started bringing an extra person in the room to type on the computer everything that you said. Anybody remember that? And then eventually, now I go to Advent Health, and there at Advent Health here in Tampa, Florida, my doctor comes in, he sits down, he's got a little notepad, he's talking to me, he's literally trying to help me figure out my challenges. And I leave there feeling heard, understood, and as if I have been dignified through that experience. So capabilities are extensions, but it can become a captivity if you allow that capability to do everything for you to the point where you are now incapable of doing it for yourself. I sat for I sat a lot over the last 3 years working on my dissertation, a lot. And what do you think happened to my hip muscles and my leg muscles? They tightened up. I thought I had a sciatica nerve problem one time because I was putting all of my effort into writing, right? But I was losing capability along the way. That's a real physical explanation there. But that captivity now comes in place where get to the point where we're unable to operate without these tools. You can't call anybody you know barely. We already established that. Most of y'all, some of y'all put two or three in the chat. We can't call anybody if we have are now in the captivity of our phone holding our memory. All right. So that I hope that helps a bit. I could go further, but I'm sure we'll touch on that again before we end. And so let's look at practical AI stewardship. That's a key word today. Let's look at stewardship. 4 habits to make this concrete. We got 4 habits that I've outlined. How to be a steward of the tool and not a consumer of its outputs. And so the first one is before before you accept what comes back. And this is baseline. This is ground zero. Before you accept what has come back, read the prompt that you sent. Then read the output. And if you're using large language models, all of them now, they give you their reasoning, their logic, and their thinking as they're going along. And they give you the power to stop them and make corrections along the way. So I want you to read the prompt that you sent and then read the output and then read the source. Don't reverse that order. All right. I don't want you to reverse that order. Treat the output as the third thing you read, not the first thing. Right. I want you to read your prompt, read the out. Sorry. Before we accept, read the prompt that we sent, read the output, and then read the source, and don't reverse that order. Verify always. Right. In healthcare, they say trust, but what? Verify, right? Don't look at the digital chart and not go and look at the patient. All right. And so I want you to treat whatever you're working on, whatever document, whatever plan, whatever you're going to be putting forth to individuals, right? That I want you to verify, treat every claim as a hypothesis. Hallucinations sound very confident. Anybody know that? Right? The devil got a lot of people hallucinating. And the citations seem like they are, correct, but I want you to trust but verify. Matter of fact, I'm a little light on the trust part, and heavy on the verify part. And so edit. I want you to edit honestly. The first draft is the model's draft, right? You've already given it a lot of information. You've even written some things, but when it spits that out, that's the model's draft. What I want you to go back, and I want this to be your practice so you never become the human out of the loop, right? The published version must be yours, right? Universities are scrapping right now. They are working feverishly to establish AI, large language model, rules. I'm trying to think of the word that I would normally use there. In the government, they're trying to create some of these things for stable coins and all that. What's it called? Regulations, right? So universities are right now struggling to quickly put in place regulations because for the last 3 years, it was the wild, wild west. And so, but it's an embarrassment because students were just turning in stuff just to complete the work. And so we must edit honestly. We talked about that. The last published version must be yours. It must be in your voice and with your judgment. I can't tell you the amount of times when I'm working with artificial intelligence, and we're going to go a little deeper in how I actually work with it as a research assistant, as a personal assistant, as something that will challenge me because we're learning that I think it's about 40 to 60% of the time, a large language model wants to agree with you because it wants you to stay. It'll tell you whatever you want to hear just to get you to stay. You have to learn to tell it how to be honest with you. Number four, discern always. So we're going to read first, we're going to verify always, we're going to edit honestly, and we're going to discern always. AI can produce plausible things, but only you can produce true. Don't confuse the two, brothers and sisters. Let's move on here. You've seen this slide, so let's go to our tool landscape. What everybody's been waiting for. Here we go, the good stuff, right? Uh, this is our tool landscape, and let's. I want us to keep this and other tools. Be open to other tools in our toolbox. And I also want to emphasize the vulnerability that we place ourselves in when we do begin to utilize these. So we have to be mindful that of the things that we say because these large language models are collecting information. And if you are in there doing anything, I know we're on a church chat, so nobody's doing anything nefarious, but I'm going to repeat what I said last week. The day of nefarious activity is over. The day of shortcuts, the day of saying whatever you want is over. And, the possibility of being locked out of softwares, kicked off of platforms, and maybe even the police showing up at your door is upon us because whatever you say is durable. It will last. And we're going to touch a little bit on that in a bit when we talk about blockchain, because that's one of the tools that we will be using under everything. And so let's go here. Practical stewardship, practical AI stewardship. We already talked about four habits. And so let's go to our tool landscape. Drafting and reasoning. The two best that I've discovered are Claude and Chat GPT. Now, they've all gone through iterations. They all have gotten better. Some are claiming as much as 98% accuracy. I doubt that still at this point because it really requires you to be a good prompter. All right. And then again, following the four, what I call AI hygiene steps that let me go back to that slide. These steps, always going through these and others that I'll teach you will keep you with good AI hygiene. So Claude, and somebody said, let me see here. On verifying sources, do you mean like when we write, we're told 3 to 5 sources minimum, referring to like schoolwork, or is that what we're referring to? And but 3 to 5 sources, what I mean is that you want to verify those sources as well. So you want to ask for sources. You want to, they usually will tell you what sources they got it from, and you want to go and actually look at those sources because sometimes you'll get dummy links and it'll cross over things. It's going from memory. And so you whatever the requirement is in your institution or otherwise, follow that. But what I'm saying is validate those sources. And someone said I use Claude for work and chat to help with sermons. And I'm glad the brother was honest because some of us we're careful to say I don't want to say I use it with sermons, but let's be clear. I'm going to get a little deeper in that in just a moment. So Claude and Chat GPT. Now, Claude has a free version. Chat GPT has a free version, but you're going to hit the wall very quickly based on the content that you're trying to create. The chats get bogged down when you start putting a lot of information in them, so you have to start a fresh chat. And I'm going to teach you a step for that. It's under projects because now all the LLM have something called projects, and I'll give you some detailed information on that in just a moment. Uh, and so sermons, strategy, long form, Claude and Chat GPT, and Claude more than even Chat GPT because it can take a lot of input. You can put a lot of papers, up to 100 articles and papers and stuff, and pictures, images, whatever, into a Claude project chat. Let's move on to the research and grounding. And if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'll definitely answer it. Research and grounding, Notebook LM, Perplexity. And I wish I would be able to. I might attempt it before we're over with. But I completed my dissertation. Matter of fact, last Monday I turned it in the final draft, and after I did that, I went to Notebook LM, which I believe is by Google. I don't think it's Microsoft, it's by Google. Notebook LM, and I asked it to create a audio version. In other words, they have some buttons you can hit for an audio version, an infographic, and all these sorts of things. And it actually created a podcast of my dissertation with a woman and a man talking back and forth to each other, discussing my dissertation. It took it about 10 minutes to accomplish this. And let me tell you something, it was out of this world. I had a couple of edits that I needed to make on it, but let me tell you, I could put that on, I could make those edits and put it online and it would be amazing. But I haven't defended yet. I defend on the 8th, so I don't want to put that information out there just yet. But Notebook LM can take YouTube videos, it can take training manuals, it can take the church manual. If you have a PDF version of the church manual, you can drop it into Notebook LM and ask it to create assets for you. So it's called sources. You put in sources and it's going to read those sources and it will create, it can answer questions like a regular LLM in its chat box, or you can go over to the right side to the studio where it has these capabilities to make audio, to make PowerPoint decks, to make all these things. Uh, Notebook LM still kind of makes AI looking PowerPoint decks. Like I made this deck on Claude with the help of Chat GPT. Chat GPT helped me build my prompt based on what I was looking for. And then there's Perplexity. I don't fool around with Perplexity too much because I get everything I need from Notebook LM. But again, that's a big one. And they have a free version, but for $20 a month, you can cover a lot more material. And trust me, to be able to put a manual in there and a training manual and be able to break it down in a way that people can understand it or turn it into a video or turn it into a podcast audio is amazing. So and it's really good at deep thinking, research and grounding. Now there's Gemini and Banana. Now I run also Child of God Clothing. My brother started that brand and he passed November of 2024. And so I was left to take over that brand. And so at that time, Gemini and its image creator, Nano Banana, was just coming out and it was creating social graphics and illustrations. So I could take pictures that we took for the brand and put them up and people be able to do it. Somebody said they're doing the same. And somebody said they found out about Notebook LM and asking which tool is good for video editing. I'm gonna provide you with some of those. I don't do a lot of video editing, but there are those that do pretty good with that. I believe I have included some of that in here. So Nano Banana, they're up to some high level now. I go there from time to time, but Chat GPT has gotten pretty good too with image generation and video generation. But if you want social graphics, illustrations, definitely Gemini, and that's straight on Google. Matter of fact, you can go into the search engine and then choose AI mode, and now you're officially utilizing a large language model, one of the largest language models out there. ChatGPT has a nonprofit version for how much? For $10. Wow. Okay. So if you're in a nonprofit, you can actually get it for $10. Thank you, Jerry. And I wonder if this is the same Jerry that I know, Jerry, the photographer that was at Oakwood. I don't, Jerry Charles, but if it is, good to see you, Jerry. All right. So voice and transcription. I already mentioned Claude Note and Whisper. And so meetings, sermons, translation, and won't spend a lot of time on this because I already talked about Claude Note. But one thing I'll mention to you about Claude Note is that it is so phenomenal in its capture, right? Of everything that it captures. You just have to make sure that you don't have it on Bluetooth because it won't pick up if you're on a Zoom and you have the Bluetooth and it's not hearing it. But as long as you can hear, it's going to capture everything that's said, every nuance. And what happens is that, for instance, let's say you are in a meeting and you went through that meeting, you have your hand notes, but you're going to miss something. And so these voice and transcription tools will pick up everything in a way that you are now, your boss or your teacher or whoever, your coworkers, your teammates are going to be like, wow, so and so was really paying attention when really you were just utilizing a capability and able to truly grasp everything that needs to be done or took place or what was said. There's someone said, okay, so you also know that, Jerry. Good. Awesome. So auto captions, right? There's Submagic, Opus Clip. You can actually, now this is one of the editing tools that was asked about. Submagic, Opus Clip. You can put in a sermon, especially an Opus Clip, and it will spit back out short videos, little shorts, reels from your sermon. You're saying this, how in the world did it know the good parts? Because that's how capable, those are some of the capabilities that are now available to us. So Submagic, Opus Clip, you can drop it in. I use Riverside LM for my podcast, Child of God Mindset podcast, when I record. Riverside, that's just a larger software that I do everything for my podcast in there, but it also utilizes the ability to make reels for me. So Submagic, Opus Clip. Marie Morris said Opus Clip is great. I see we got some pros on here. Not everybody is a newbie. I'm here thinking I got a bunch of newbies, but I see we have some people that are doing their thing. Automation. Zapier, I use that for our clothing brand. You can automate emails. You can send out chain messages. You can make API. You can make things. You can set up APIs. You can build apps. If it wasn't a legal issue for the communication directors, if it wasn't a legal issue, um, you could create an app for your church, no problem. But then you have to be worried about data security and privacy and being sued if you do not have those things in place. So it's better. I think the North American division, Lavern, has approved a app for churches to be able to do a lot of things with. So I'd recommend using that. But for your personal life, your personal business, you can automate and create apps and different things along that. Any questions before I move on? I see one in the chat. There are so many AI tools. I mostly use ChatGPT for organizing presentations, writing, and creating an investment plan. Awesome. Yeah, it can do all of that. And so let's move on a bit. I know the time is ticking on us, and so I have about 27 more minutes because we're going to leave the last 30 minutes, I guess, for questions and answer and other things like that. And so, how to talk to the tool. Let's go. You can screen shoot this, write it down. But the formula, this is the formula, the role. It's role, task, context, format, and guardrails. You want to establish it, and it sounds more complicated than it is. But for instance, who is the model, right? What are they going to be today, right? This is a chance for a little bit of schizophrenia. Okay, the model can be whatever you want it to be. So today it could be you are a sermon prep assistant. Now I know some of you didn't realize that TD Jakes, when at his height, and all these other mega preachers that are on television, they have usually a 10 to 20 team sermon research team. Right? You think they get up every week and they're that polished every week? No, they have a team like script writers for sitcoms or television shows, right? And they sit around tables. They're intelligent individuals, maybe individuals from the congregation, and they decide they fill a role. So AI can do the same. So you need to decide, tell it what it's supposed to be doing. You are an expert sermon prep assistant. You are a Andrews University level seminary. I don't know. That might not work for some folk. And so then the task. What's the job? Tell it what it's to do. So you told it who it's supposed to be. What is it supposed to do? Right? And you're telling it, the job is I want you to pull 5 quotable lines from this article that you've already read. So you know there's some stuff in there, but you're asking it now so that you can match it up against what you're thinking, right? It's kind of a wall to bounce things off of as well. Context. What does it need to know? Let me go to my notes to make sure I'm not, what does it need to know? Audience is bilingual, multi-generational, urban, right? It needs to know your audience. Just like as leaders, we need to know our audience, the audience we're speaking to. And then the format. What's the shape? I want one per line under 220 characters, right? So I want 5 quotable lines, one per line under 220 characters, right? You tell it these things that you want it to do. And then last but not least, you put the guardrails in place, right? And this is my favorite part. I like telling it, do not. I don't know what it is about telling it, do not do this that I like so much. And it actually listens. Unlike our kids sometimes, it actually listens. And so you want to tell it, no Christianese. Anybody speak Christianese? Right? No invented statistics. Tell it you may not want it to change what you wrote. You may want it to analyze what you wrote or give you recommendations. And last week I mentioned pre-mortem, and we'll talk about that in a moment a bit more. And so give it the guardrails. Tell it what not to do. Don't change my title. Don't change what I'm saying, but X, Y, and Z. So here's a worked example. You are a sermon prep assistant for a Seventh-day Adventist pastor. Take the manuscript below and pull 5 quotable lines under 220 characters each. And the audience is bilingual, multi-generational. The tone is warm, declarative, no clickbait. The format is one per line. Avoid Christianese, cliches, never invent quotes or statistics. And some of the things that I'll add sometimes is I will also tell it, use my tone, voice, and style. I mentioned this word last week, grep, and I'll give a definition on that so you know how to use it. When you're grepping something, you're actually asking it to read the entire thing. So if you submitted a sermon, if you submitted a manuscript or a transcript or something you've been working on, you want it to read the entire thing, and so that it can actually stick to what it's supposed to do. So there's a lot of other things you could put into this prompt, but that's a simple one. We're going to show you some other ones. Let's move right along. I see let's see here. Let me scroll back a little bit in the questions. Jerry said, what is your opinion on using AI for board meeting for capturing recording? As long as the members of the board are aware, just like in a Zoom meeting, it informs them that it's being recorded. As long as they're aware, I believe that it's a great tool, and you could quickly send out once you transcribe it. Once it's transcribed, and you can save it as a PDF, you can send that out to individuals in a way that, it's very rapid. They immediately can see the summary notes, the next steps, who's responsible to take care of what before we come back. So I think it's a very powerful tool. And I did say grepping, yes, PPING. We'll explain that in a little detail before we close out today. Let me see here. I see Dr. Morris says, my job uses AI. To what extent is the phone system linked to the computer setup? Uh, in that your conversations on the job phone is being recorded. I'm saying this because my phone seems like it's open, like someone is listening. Um, well, the IT department is checking all your emails, you know that. And so in today's world, don't think that you may not, that conversations may not be captured as well. We know that the technology is there for that. So it would be something that you'd ask the IT department of your job whether or not such things are being done. But absolutely, our cell phones are listening to everything. I don't know about work phones, those work systems like Cisco work systems, et cetera, but our cell phones are listening to everything. And that's why you get these things. But great question. Yes. Thank you, Travis. It is a great question. How would it know your tone, voice, and style? So, how would it know your tone, voice, and style is you have to feed it. You have to feed it material of your own creation. And that's how it is going to learn your tone, voice, and style. And in particular, whatever you're working on, again, I recommend that you actually create content first. Use your brain trust first. Write as much as you can write. And what'll shock you is that usually when I'm writing, I write, I mean, probably a couple pages worth of stuff. When I get into that zone, when I don't hand over my critical thinking and my first thoughts to the machine, to the AI, to the vending machine, and I actually sit there and begin to write a prompt, and I'm very detailed. I've been told that I know how to editorialize a little bit too well, right? I can run my mouth. That's a nice way of saying I can run my mouth, and I can be concise. But at the same time, it's okay to editorialize. It's okay to tell it your thoughts. It's okay to put out there what you're trying to get at, and then let it help. Let it help in that regard because now it has context to work with. And so that's how it learns your tone, voice, and style. And over time, it gets to know you a little bit too well. It gets real comfortable with you quickly. I don't, sometimes I don't like that. But let's move on so we can cover this. So we covered that. So let's go to the next slide. AI in ministry. We had questions particularly on this. And in AI in ministry, specific places, this work actually shows up in the life of a congregation. It shows up in our sermon craft, right? There's 6 specific places that it shows up nowadays: sermon craft, outlines, illustrations, cross references. But the conviction must stay yours. I mean, let me tell you something. I got some elders now that they preaching some amazing sermons now that they finally. I've been at my current church for almost 3 years, and some of them just found Chat GPT a few months ago, and I have an elder preach every month, maybe twice a month at times. I'm there to hear the sermon because I'm encouraging them along, right? But now, man, they'll have, like, matter of fact, let me see if I can find the slide here. I have a somewhere in here. Let me see if I have it. Man, let me go back. I thought I had it in here, the little joke on that. But it'll be like 14 alliterations, it'll be like all of these run-ons and everything, and you're sitting there like, oh goodness, this is you realize, you start to see the pattern because they're actually letting the AI do the work. They're using the vending machine. So sermon craft is that's how AI is showing up in ministry, AV and communications, right? Sermons, social clips, transcripts, audio cleanup. I mean, it does an amazing job at audio cleanup and captions. You can also make slides on the fly. So if the pastor has a sermon title and he's giving it to you, you can drop it in a large language model, Chat GPT, Claude, or even Gemini, and it can put forth Gemini Nana Banana, and it can put forth a slide, a cover slide, a title slide for the sermon, the scripture slide, etc., different things like that. Um, and so there's a lot of ways that AV and communications can utilize it. Multilingual outreach. Right? We talked about translation. I have a lot of Hispanics in my area, and I've always wanted to have those headsets with somebody talking in the microphone, and I don't need that anymore. I can actually have a setup where we can have multilingual in one house and online as well. Pastoral prep for wedding messages, funeral homilies, hospital visit, drafts, and there are ways that we could utilize it, but again, not allow it to take us over. All right. I wish I had time to spend there, but somebody said, I think of facial recognition. Um, for children's ministry, all right, when you're checking kids in children's ministry, you can utilize artificial intelligence for facial recognition and otherwise, or of the parent, so that when they come back to pick them up, you can match them with the child. There's all sorts of things with that. You can use it. It shows up in ministry and admin and planning. I do my speaking schedule now. So I get with my first elder. We set up the next 3 months specifically of the speaking schedule. So I take the old speaking schedule, I drop that in, and all we're doing is mixing the names and fine tuning. So I'll drop it in. I'll give it a prompt to rearrange for the next quarter, and then I'll drop in we'll go through it name by name, section by section together. That's our part. That's our responsibility. So you can definitely do calendars, communications, prep boards, and it gives you hours back to actually do real ministry. And then last but not least, one of the ways that it shows up is it can amplify your testimony, but don't ask AI to invent one for you. I've heard some folk get up to preach and they're telling stories about when they were in Turkey and they've never been to Turkey because they asked the AI to give them some illustrations. And so let's make sure that the message is ours, the testimony is ours. Let's go on. A little humor. I agree that was a near perfect sermon, but I don't think, but don't you think it lacked soul? Right? And that's what we're noticing now because I mean people think that nobody recognizes it, but we can tell, right? AI may produce the perfect words, but it cannot produce the presence or the soul behind it. And so here's what AI can't replace. 6 things that must stay in your hands. Prayer, and I have some more prompts to give you in just a moment. 6 things that must stay in your hand. Prayer. It is not preparation, it is the soil. This is what AI cannot replace. We must, as Christian leaders and as leadership, that's a whole nother topic, but we are leadership. Christ is the shepherd, the Lord is our shepherd. We are leadership, and we must constantly be in prayer. It cannot replace discernment. AI suggests, but I need you present to decide. Pastoral presence in the hospital room, the funeral, or the hard conversation. You cannot let AI supersede and take over those. You must still be the human present and in the loop. Prophetic courage, right? What needs to be said, even when the algorithm wouldn't choose it, you are there to ensure that that prophetic courage is present because you are sharing what the spirit is leading you to share and what God has asked you to share. Don't let the algorithm choose for you because it may hide some things. Relationship, what it cannot replace is relationship. And this is important. Every Sabbath when we do welcomes at my church, we sing a song, I'm glad you are here. And I tell them, look the person in the left eye because the left eye, a lot of mothers are right-handed, and so while they're working around, they're holding the infant in their left arm, and when they look down at the infant, it is the infant's the right eye is buried in the bosom, the left eye is looking up at the mother, and so a close connection is formed. And I always forget the hormone. I think it's PAE or PEA that passes as a result of looking at each other, and so I tell people eye contact is very important. Look people in the eye and the pause that's with that pause that says I see you. And last on this, what AI cannot replace is accountability before God. The signature on what you put forth on the message must still be yours. Let's keep going now. Another little AI hygiene. This happens more often than you'd like to think. One person is thinking they're using AI to just send out a quick email, and the other person on the other end doesn't read the email. They just have AI send back a message. What are we doing? It says AI turned this single bullet point into a long email I can pretend I wrote. And on the other side, the person says AI makes a single bullet point out of this long email and I can pretend I read it. And we have to be mindful. I keep on coming, bringing us back to our mindfulness, right? Let's talk to the model like you mean it. Now, if you missed everything else, I want you to know that these items here, these 9 items here, can change tremendously your prompt output. It can change tremendously what you're doing. So the first one is set the temperature to 0, and what that means is it causes the LLM, the large language model, to focus. All right, so screen shoot this, take a picture. It makes the answers deterministic, and it literally sends a message to the server in Tennessee, right, and tells it to lower its temperature so that it can optimize what it is doing. All right, so set the temperature to 0. That's the first thing I usually write in a prompt. The second thing I usually tell it is I tell it to update its memories down over here on the right-hand side here. So I'm just jump over to that. Update your memory, right? On memory-enabled tools, tell it to remember. So what it will do now, and the third one I'm gonna go to is grepping, right? So I tell it set the temperature to 0, update your memory in this chat, right? And now, if you're using a project like in ChatGPT or Claude, and you've downloaded a bunch of files, right? And I told you Claude can hold 100 files at a time before you need to start a new chat within that same project. But you tell it set the temperature to 0, update your memory, and then you tell it grep this file. And right here it says grep this pattern, but I would say grep this file. And it will read the entire file from top to bottom, all flat images, all figures, all tables. It'll extract every instance, every verb, pardon me, and it works. It literally forces it to do what it's supposed to do. It doesn't take the easy way like us. I told you, it was made by us, so it's going to try to take the shortcut. All right. Now there's one called pre-mortem. Let's go over here to pre-mortem this plan, and imagine what you wrote failed: a plan, a message, a sermon, just something that you put together. Imagine that it fails. What went wrong? A business plan? What went wrong? And so a pre-mortem, not a post-mortem. A pre-mortem is something that you do before you send out whatever or before you utilize it, and it surfaces the blind spots. So these tools right here have been the most valuable tools in my toolkit. And I don't know everything, but these 9 things here: set the temperature to 0, update your memory, grep this pattern, right? Grep this, and that means it's going to force it to. I tell it to grep the chat. So all of the conversations we've had on this topic, I tell it to grep because it can do it every single time. It doesn't take a lot for it to do it. It can grep all of the downloaded documentation and images, and PowerPoint decks and whatever you put in there, and then it can grep the chats in the entire project and find information that you may vaguely remember is there, but it can actually locate it for you and validate. Now, sometimes it'll go in if you forget to tell it to grep. And even when you tell it to grep, it'll go in and still be a little lazy. So you have to go behind it and ensure that it didn't get lazy or hallucinate, and go back and tell it, no, this is what I recall. Go back and grep it again and check. And I guarantee you, 9 times out of 10, it'll come back and apologize. It's really good at apologizing. All right. We talked about setting the temperature to 0, update memory, grepping the document or documents or the entire chat. And you can do this in Chat GPT. You can do this in Claude. You can do this in Gemini. They all know how to do it. A Notebook LM does not grep, as far as I know now. Every time I ask it, it doesn't do it. So when we pre-mortem. Let's go quickly to Steelman, the opposing view. This is how you can get it to disagree with you. And you want it to disagree with you. And now I'm going to be honest, in a pre-mortem, it will, in a sense, do a version of vetting your logic. But if you want the Steelman, the opposing view, then I'd suggest that you write that in there. So all of these little prompts can be placed at the beginning of what you're writing, or it can be put at the tail end. I usually put it at the beginning, and I'll put, when I tell it to grep, I'll tell it what to grep. I tell it to pre-mortem this as well. I might say pre-mortem until I'm further down in developing the project and I'm getting closer to completion, and an update memory I put up front. And then think step by step. You want it to do its best at critical thinking because you're using critical thinking, and so it'll trigger chains of thought, and the model will show how it's working. Right? Think step by step. That way, as it's spitting out its logic, as it's spitting out its thoughts, you can hit the stop button, hit the edit button, and literally add something to what it's considering, because you might remember something. And then these last two I don't use as often. These last three I don't use as often, but cite or admit uncertainty. And so that helps to reduce hallucinations. Again, grepping for me and setting the temperature to zero helps a lot with that. And then but it forces grounded answers, so cite or admit uncertainty, and then think step by step. So you could even create like a little post-it sticker. Some computers have stickies, some or a document that you just keep open, and you grab all of these and drop them in when you're starting out a project, and you put the ones you feel that are relevant. And be brutally honest. Skip politeness. For those of us who can handle that, go ahead and do that. And then ask it, what am I missing? Universal blind spot check after any plan. That's similar to pre-mortem. Let me jump ahead. I double check for any questions real quick. Someone said the word of God will forever remain the same. Amen. Will you be available if someone needs one-on-one help from you? I'm open to that. And so definitely we can chat about that. What about those cultures that thinks it's disrespectful to look people in the eye? Definitely be culturally sensitive for sure. Thank you for that, Jennifer. Very, very good observation. We are culturally sensitive. And so, but if it's not one of those cultures, definitely the connection. Sometimes if it's a culture that doesn't want to do that, then we're concerned with presence. Make sure you're present and understanding the cultural exchange. All right, so I want you to use these and practice with these with anything that you're looking to do. I want to give you 5 guardrails. We just have a few slides left. Am I good, Lavern? I need to bring it on down. All right, whew. All right. I feel like I said I might be when I leave this meeting. I won't have any words to talk to my wife. I'll be out of words for the day. But the rules that keep you human. We're going to bring it close to a close in these next few slides. But the rules that keep you human. There's 5 guardrails. All right. AI does the draft, not the decision. Let that sink in. Let it speed the surface. Let it compress. Let it do what it does. But make sure you put in a hearty prompt. Use the little tips that I gave you, because though I want you to understand, go back to this slide for one moment. This is how you talk to the server. Because I keep reminding us that we're not talking to a person, we're talking to a machine. And that machine has been programmed to do what it does. It's numbers and letters and all of these things that compress, right? And so by remembering that you're talking to a server, when you start out giving it these commands, you're establishing the rules so it does not, you can save yourself a lot of time by utilizing these. So 5 guardrails. Number one, I said AI does the draft, not the decision, right? Don't let it set the direction. Number two, verify before you publish. Had I verified that one slide, I'd have had the right book cover on there, but I got caught out there. But it's a good example because even people who utilize these things on a regular basis and may be considered experts, it can happen to the best of us. So every fact, every citation, every promise, be confident. Being confident does not mean you're correct. I have what they say an authoritarian voice at times, and I sound real confident when I'm speaking on things, but still fact check me. I don't mind. You should. Trust but verify. Number three, primary sources stay primary. Read the text, not just the summary. The original is where the soul is. Number four, discernment stays human. We talked about that last week. So when the stakes are spiritual, because I'm talking to religious people here. I'm talking to Christians here. the the stakes are spiritual. The judgment cannot be outsourced. We will do foolish things. Our general conference was setting up a trip to Rwanda some years back, and they had artificial intelligence make a flyer. And on the flyer, it had a gorilla and some other things. And it said, "We're going to minister to the people of Rwanda." Now, I want you to think about that. A gorilla on the cover, even though the gorilla is the national animal, I believe, of Rwanda. Uh, the embarrassing thing was they almost put it out to to invite people to come on this trip, on this mission trip, right? And it would have been deeply insulting because when they took a good look at it, they realized that it sounded as if they were saying that the people of Rwanda are gorillas. That's what it looked like on the video. So we must use our human discernment. And I actually was the person that called the GC lawyers because I saw a copy of it before it was sent out. And I called those lawyers and I said, "Hey, this could be mistaken for this." And they thanked me and they quickly pulled it and redid it. And so discernment must stay human. Judgment cannot be outsourced. Number five, the signature is still yours. Whatever goes under your name is still you. You must be accountable not only to mankind but before God. So let's close with capability without captivity. We're back to that. Technology should expand. I want you to look like the guy on the left and not the guy on the right. Can I just make it plain? The guy on the right has been subjugated now. He has tethered himself to the algorithm which is leading him. And now he can sit on his phone and scroll while the AI is doing all the work. But the other guy over here, he has remained a driver, directly connected to the tool, expanding his human potential, but remembering that without a connection to God, let's look at the bottom here, without the divine intelligence guiding human intelligence, AI as a powerful tool will end up ruling over us and disconnecting us from divine intelligence. Don't outsource your soul, don't surrender your role. And so, a word as I close, and I thank you all again for having me. I know it was like a data dump, and I gave you the tools that I gave you. You will be able to utilize those. Trust me, the nine ways to speak to the server and the rules. You have the rules, and you can utilize those rules. Learn to and learn. I could have done. You can go online and get a list of prompts. I could have given you that. But what I want you to learn are the tools in order to remain the human in the loop. And when you begin to practice it, it may be slow at first, but I'm really fast at it now because I've been doing it for some time. And I want to encourage you to follow the steps, use the tools that we have shared with you today. I'd love to come back and we can go a step further because I would love to talk to you about where our world is heading in the financial realm, the blockchain, which I wanted to get to today, but I'm gonna cut on that. Come back and discuss blockchain, which is three things. It's trustless, doesn't require trust. It's immutable. It cannot be changed because all of these blocks go around the world on servers. And if you change one, you didn't change all of them. So that one that was changed will be rejected. And so it's trustless, immutable, can't be changed, and it's distributed. Interestingly enough, when I'm already declaring I'm coming back, Lavern, that the the Bible, I'll give you this little caveat, and then I'll read this last slide. The Bible used to be trusted. It's supposed to be immutable. You're not supposed to be able to change it, even though the councils of Nicaea did a good job of chopping and cutting and remixing. But God wouldn't allow them to take out the love story, the gospel. And the third thing it does, so the Bible was could be trusted. It was supposed to be. It's supposed to be immutable. Shouldn't change God's word, and it's distributed. It's the most popular book in the world. And so when I come back, we'll talk about that. But I want when I come back, I want to hear testimonies, and we'll put my information in the chat there. I answer my emails, I answer my voicemails, my texts. I answer the scammers that even call me. I try not to give them too much information, but I'm willing to share whatever I know. So that's a word to close. We've always adapted. Let's admit that. Let's stop faking the funk. We have always adapted. We adapted to the automobile, we adapted to the telephone, we adapted to the internet, and we will adapt to artificial intelligence. Let's do it wisely. The question is not whether or not these tools will become more powerful. The question is whether we will remain wise enough to use them well. Capability without captivity. And that's it. Lavern, maybe there's some questions I could answer if we have a little time left. I went
Yes,
4 minutes over.
we can, sorry, we can take a few questions.
Absolutely.
Um, you can just put them in the chat. I see everyone is they're really encouraged by your presentation
Thank you.
and they're ready to be the human in the loop.
Good, good,
Okay, if
good.
there are any questions, we can take them now.
Thank you so much. And I don't mind if they come off of mute and speak. It doesn't have to be in the chat at this point. We can spend the last moments together just taking. I see
Okay,
Jerry.
what I would like to say
Mhm.
is, as you speak, keep it brief and
So we can
to
we can take a
ensure
lot of
that,
questions.
yeah, to ensure full participation.
I'm going to
Okay?
come off of sharing so that way we can see
Sure.
the hands there.
Okay, so we'll take hands.
How you
Okay,
doing?
okay, Jerry.
Hey, Jerry.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so my question, I put it in the chat, but I don't know if they saw it.
Okay.
What is your opinion of using artificial and intelligence regarding, say, board meetings, those kind of things for church?
Yeah, I did kind of answer that briefly, but I'll definitely reiterate that um, use it as a tool and as a capability to organize and to using it as a capability to organize and put together calendars, speaking schedules, agendas. It's very efficient at doing that. So I don't see any issue with that. We've been using technology for decades. It just has advanced to the point now where it compresses time. So you can spend more time doing ministry versus putting together the schedule. But again, trust but verify. Go through that schedule. So I don't see any issues in utilizing it, um, for that purpose. You would you'd use your laptop and a program to do it. Why not utilize this, but make sure that you use it sensibly? Does that answer your question, Jerry?
Yes, it does. I just wondering if that would be, I know that's not Lavern's department, but uh, a suggestion to have that um, go through our clerk so that they understand that it's an option, you
Hmm.
know, to help them in, note taking and stuff like that.
Hmm. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that would be a discussion for the secretariat.
Hmm.
So yeah, like you say, with the clerks, they can raise the issue and see where it goes from there.
My
We have.
my clerk is
Mm-hmm,
in her late 70s. She does the traditional minutes,
mm-hmm,
and then I send her the transcript of the board meeting. So now she has a backup. Now, if she knew how to use ChatGPT, uh, she knows how to use a computer, but she does not use ChatGPT or Claude or any of that. But if she did, she can now drop that in and match it up with what she has typed up, and it'll identify. It'll do a pre-mortem on it and identify anything that she may have missed. So it'll reduce errors and again save time. But she does it analog. I do it digital, and I send it to her, and she reads it rather than dropping it in the large language model. Lenny, Becca.
yeah,
Yes,
I think
Pastor,
that's best. Uh-huh.
Pastor Campbell, I'm of a different generation. I
Yes.
tell you my problem. My problem is that I'm very
Very timid.
and sometimes I could be intimidated with the use of this technology. What do you advise should be my first action to get rid of the intimidation or the timidity?
I would say use the guardrails that I've provided today to begin to put your foot in the water and kind of wade in the water a bit. Be careful about putting personal information because you can get very comfortable with large language models and start putting your personal stuff on there. Start having psychological counseling sessions with it and all sorts of things, right? When you realize how smart it is, but it's still a tool, still a machine. So definitely use the guardrails that I've put in place so that you're safe for the most part there. And um, start off light. Start, write your email to the best of your ability, the best version, put it in and ask it uh, to to refine, test your logic, or otherwise to make it warmer because sometimes we're mistaken. That's one of the biggest issues with written communication. You can be it can be mistaken, and so I would say take your time. We have a lot. We have time. This is being implemented over a period of years. We're probably about I know since 1956 AI has been growing, but access for us to large language models has literally been, like I said, 3 years. So there's still time for adoption. Take your time. Understand that get rid of the belief that I don't know how to use AI. Trust me, you've been using it a lot more than you realize. And so uh, get your feet wet. But
Hey, preacher, thank you. Excellent presentation. Thank you, man. And
thank
you
you.
made it very simple. I'll see what I can do about that. Thanks.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
What do you say about I see a lot of flyers coming out and the and what I see is in the case of logos,
Hmm.
they're not very accurate.
Hmm.
It doesn't accurately capture logos.
Hmm.
What can you say to
I meant to put some prompts in here for image creation. And
Mhm.
so there's some language that helps you to lock the design. So one of the tools I gave today which is just words. The tools I gave were words grepping. You can tell it to grep an image
Mm.
and tell it pay close attention. Tell it it's a graphic using that role thing that I gave you because again practice that and what'll happen that'll become second nature for you. You are a expert graphic designer. I want you to grep this logo like the Northeastern logo and pay special attention to how it's to its design, and it'll do pretty good. And the same thing with faces. There's prompts that help to lock in facial features. Um, it has a hard time. I've seen all kind of looks. When I asked it to do my face, it's almost brought me out looking like a monkey a few times. But um, the prompts, they're online, they're easy to find, but definitely you can go in and ask it for prompts on how you can lock images and how it can produce that image back to you. And then once it's produced the first one, you see that it has that, but oh, I need to change this over here. When you go to that next phase, you again ask it to lock what has already been done so that you'll be able to retain that. And it's pretty simple once you um, learn how to do that. I wish we had more time where we could have gone into a bit of that today. I didn't include it in the slide deck because I said I already had a lot there. I see some questions in the chat, but maybe there's a question. Oh, you mentioned all those flyers that came out. Mother's Day, and Father's Day is going. Mother's Day, everybody, it just all looked like the same soup.
Yes, yes.
Because and so that's okay. Everybody's experimenting, so we won't make anybody feel bad, but be creative and realize that you're going to get the same Twix and Snicker and cookies out of the vending machine if that's all you put in. You came here today and last week so that you can learn to have an edge and be ahead of the wave and be able to put out content that represents you and just doesn't look like everybody else's stuff. The fact that it could do these phenomenal flyers is amazing all by itself, but now we want to take it to the next level. And Northeastern deserves the best, right? It deserves for you to do your best and to put in effort with these tools that will save you time as you get better at prompting them. I see some stuff in here. I uploaded my logo to ChatGPT and adds it with no issues. Yeah, ChatGPT has gotten excellent at that. Um, all right. Any other questions? I don't want to
We
hold you
could take,
longer than I.
yeah, we could take one or two more if there are any.
Leo Rowe, can you take one from me?
Hey, hey, Leo.
Let's go.
I'm good.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I'm getting ready to do a summer campaign and would like some help on how I can actually cater my slides. I have the sermons, but I want to do a prophecy series that would, I guess, be indigenous to the Native American
Mm,
community here, where I pastor, as well as uh, African Americans.
mhm.
So, any suggestions?
I mean, that I don't want to make it sound so simple, but that's fairly easy to do because what you
Okay.
will do is you'll go on Google.
Uh-huh.
I'd recommend going on Google and using AI
Okay.
mode and getting some sources, asking it for sources for
Okay.
context, right? There's a saying that I thought I had on my slide, one of my slides here, but it says contextual intelligence leads to contextual competence, which helps
Hmm.
us to plan, which helps us to take astute action as we plan, manage, and implement and implement. Sorry, as we plan, implement and manage for change. And so you have the tools to go and get context on that group. And then I would take like New Beginnings. You're familiar with the
Okay.
ASI New Beginnings, and you
No,
could
not.
yeah, so ASI spent millions of dollars some years back to create something called New Beginnings. I baptized a lot of people using those slide presentations. Now you could take those presentations, drop them in the AI, drop the
Oh, yes, yes,
context.
yes. Now I remember. Yes, yes,
Yeah, and
I'm
they're
aware
free,
of
and they
that.
just updated them recently.
Okay.
Right? They
Okay.
had one for black people because there was none but white people on it. Pardon me if we have any Caucasian brethren with us. No, no mean to infuriate anyone, but they created one for with pictures of black people included, people of color included, and so you could take that, drop it in there, drop the context that you pulled from a large language model. Again, verify. That's why I'll go with Google because I think
Okay.
it's really good. Pull that, put
Uh-huh.
those together, put your prompt together, use those select from those 9 prompting things, set the temperature to 0, all these different things, and you'll be
Uh-huh.
shocked um,
Mm.
what it will bring together, but then make it your own because you've already done the first work because you would have done this with your your regular Google search. You'd have pulled down a bunch of information. You'd have done and you'd have had to spend time, but it'll compress it. But then this
Okay.
time you've saved, make sure you spend time vetting and making it your own.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
most
Okay,
important
good.
piece to me. Make it your own because uh, you know, that's how it becomes valuable, truly valuable. I hope I answered
Okay,
your
good.
question. Yes,
Okay, great. Thanks. Appreciate that, man.
absolutely, Leo.
Hmm.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we can end on that note. Um, can you share your contact and information
Absolutely.
in the chat for them?
I'll give my personal email instead of my conference email because that one I don't know what's going on with that. But Dre,
Yes, and as you do that, we want to say a special thanks to Pastor Campbell. And if you enjoyed this workshop, can we have some reaction in the chat? Yes, it was very informative, and I'm sure all of us are eager now to go and see what we can do, practice our craft in using AI, and hopefully we'll use it to minister in some amazing ways. I also want to thank our participants who helped us through the program um, for both sessions, Andrea and Daniel, and to you, the attendees. We could not have done this without you. In fact, it would have been sort of meaningless, pointless, because this was done especially for you. So I want you to know there have been a number of you asking in the chat how you can get access to the recordings. They are on YouTube. Um, Someone, can you please put in the YouTube links so that our participants can share it with their family and friends? Those persons who were not able to make this meeting, you can share those links. They are also available on our Northeastern Conference website. You can find all of the recordings there as well. And also, there's a post about this workshop. You will be able to find the presentations there as well, and all of the information that was covered in this series. So, thank you once again. Thank you, Pastor Campbell.
My pleasure.
And we will definitely have you back to expound on all of this AI information as it continues to evolve. And as we end, I'm gonna ask Pastor Daniel Smith, one of the Assistant Communications Directors, to end us in prayer.
Thank you. Let us pray. Father, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for this last 2 weeks where we delved into how to use AI in a way that will help to advance your mission. We pray, God, that you will continue to bless our presenter. We pray, God, that you'll continue to give him the wisdom and the insight so that as he continues to make presentations on this very important topic, conversation, that God, many persons will just learn how to use and to navigate these tools in a way that bring glory to your name. I pray for everyone that was on this morning, that God, that we will be able to use all of these tools to advance the mission in our church, in our conference, and whatever we use it to do. We thank you for allowing your presence to be with us. So go with us now. Continue, Lord, I pray a special prayer for my director for giving her this wonderful insight so that, we could be able to have this conversation for the last 2 weeks. Continue to bless her in her leadership also. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Amen. Pastor Campbell, I don't see your contact in the
chat.
chat. Is it there?
I'll copy it again and drop it. I put it in there, but it looks like it's way up. It's way up. I'm gonna grab it and drop it.
Yeah.
And I
Someone
see Wilmer had a quick question there. Do you want me to just give a quick answer on how
quickly,
much do
please.
I pay
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
tools?
Quickly.
So I have the $20 version of ChatGPT. That's all I need. It's pretty robust. I pay $100 for a month for my Claude because I do big projects on it. So I'll do large projects on it. And if you get the $200 a month version, but you have to think about it. This is the equivalent of having a team. That $200 version has a lot more privacy and a lot more capacity to do big things. So, but I do the $100 version of Claude. I'm going to reduce that after I finish the couple of big projects I'm doing currently, and I can always ramp it back up if need be. I'll reduce that back to $20 a month. So, some of them are free that I'm using currently, but mostly on average they're $20 a month. And someone mentioned through nonprofits you can get a lower price. Even students, you can get lower prices. So if you're in school, if you're working for a nonprofit, you can try to get a bigger discount, but on average 20 so. Let me hit my information. There we go. There's my email, drecamp1@gmail.com, and my cell phone. It's a California number, but I live in Florida. I used to pastor out in California, Riverside, California.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.